Sean?
Mike?
What is this, a crossover episode? Hello, everybody. I'm Mike, and over there to my right is Sean. We're definitely in the same room. This is What Is This, a crossover episode, a BoJack Horseman podcast. I just reached over and touched Sean's shoulder.
Yeah, no, that's right. You did. That's true. You did.
Because we're definitely in the same room.
Anyway, that's what happened.
This is the last episode of season 1 of BoJack Horseman, titled Later.
Man, later, alligator.
Later, alligator. Before we dive into the episode, Sean, for the final time, we have to talk about what happened on the day this episode released.
No.
August 22nd, 2014.
No.
So, according to onthisday.com, the number one song...
Shout out to onthisday.com.
The number one song was Rude by Magic!
Oh, damn. Really exclaimed on that one.
Well, their name is in all caps and they have an exclamation point. Yeah.
It makes sense. It's just you haven't done that before.
I think I did it once. The number one song in the UK was Am I Wrong by Nico and Vince.
Yeah.
Nico and Vince. It was a Friday. It was 8 years, 4 months, and 9 days ago.
Was it really a Friday?
Yep.
We're really ending this how it began.
Not a leap year. Star sign Leo. Chinese zodiac horse.
Man, wait, hold on a second. Hold on.
California Attorney General Kamala Harris marries lawyer Douglas Emhoff in Santa Barbara. You may know her as the Vice President of the United States of America.
You might know him
the first
as...
female one, by the way.
Yeah.
You might know him as the second gentleman.
I think that's right.
Wait, is he the second gentleman if there's no first gentleman?
He's the second gentleman still, but I mean...
But so are we... what's her name, Biden, the first gentleman?
Well, I think she's the first lady. He's the second gentleman for some reason.
Biden's the first gentleman.
You know what? He might be. Let's see. Who
Sleepy
is
Joe.
the first gentleman? Yeah.
Sleepy Joe is the first gentleman.
Yeah.
And then finally, there was the second Ebola death in Nigeria, Africa's most populated country. Should I add like a rim shot after that?
Yeah.
That's the punchline?
Sure. That's the punchline?
That's the punchline.
Yeah.
Anyway.
First gentleman would only be if they're married to the president. Or the head of state.
Oh, so if Joe Biden was gay.
Yeah.
Which, hey, might be on the table still. You never know.
You think so?
He could be closeted. You never know.
Maybe. I'm
not here to out him.
That's his big 2024 campaign.
I'm not here to out the president, but he could like men.
Yeah, maybe.
You never know.
This isn't insider information or anything, though, right? Like, be clear about that. You know, yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. I didn't go to like a party at the White House and then me and President Biden reached for the same snack and he touched my hand and he like looked at me. That didn't happen.
We do know that Mike both has a lot of sources in the White House and also attends a lot of parties there. So
I am.
But this is
who's who in the White House. That's me.
Yeah, but this in specific is not from one of those sources. This is just
not insider information.
No.
Anyway, this episode is titled Later. It is season 1, episode 12 of BoJack Horseman. Months after his memoir is released, BoJack's being considered for a role that's a lifelong dream. And we were talking about this, Sean, off recording. But this episode, because the last one was so wild and crazy, this kind of hits more like an epilogue as opposed to like a season finale. Would you agree?
Yeah, and not to like give away the plot or whatever, of this podcast, but it like one of the things I was going to bring up at the end, and it fits to bring up now, is if the show had ended here, I think it'd be pretty satisfying one season of television. It ends on a surprisingly optimistic note for what the rest of this, I guess not, explicitly optimistic. Definitely there's room to read into there. And I think knowing that there is more beyond this, I tend to read more negatively into the ending. But I think if you were to think of this as like, this is the end of the story, it's a pretty good ending for BoJack. It's not terrible.
Yeah. But of course, it is not the end of the story.
And so I think we'll talk about the scene later, but I think it comes across a lot more melancholy knowing that there's 5 more seasons of this show.
Right. Yeah. So what did you, you kind of said it, but what did you think of the episode overall?
I really liked it. I think it's a great wrap up to the season, kind of brings everything full circle that we've seen so far. It we'll talk about it at the end, but it sets up another season really well while also closing things out in a really satisfying way where this could have been a good one season of television. Right. Although I'm glad that it's not. There's some stuff like in this episode that hit a little not harder than last week, but this week delivered the monologues that I expect more. Where last time was like a trip, right? And that's where the sadness came from and where the heaviness came from. The heaviness came in this episode more from people giving monologues that you're like, oh fuck, please stop talking.
Yeah, this had some truth in it. You know what I mean? It was, and some of it from characters that you wouldn't expect typically to get it from.
Yes.
But let's dive into it. We open with the Dick Cavett show.
Yeah.
And Secretariat is on the show. And Secretariat, do you know who voices Secretariat? Did you recognize it?
I thought I recognized it, but I didn't look it up or anything.
Mr. Fantastic himself, John Krasinski, is Secretariat.
Oh, man. Yeah, I don't. Yeah. That's a different conversation, but I wouldn't start calling him that just yet. Let's wait a little bit and see.
I mean, he's the only Mr. Fantastic that's been in a good movie in the last 20 years, so.
Okay, we can't. Can you define good movie for me before? No, let's just move on.
Better than either of the, or any of the 3 Fantastic Four movies.
I'll give you that.
So he's the best Mr. Fantastic we've had.
You know what? That's true.
So that's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, he's also Jim from The Office, but more importantly, director of The Quiet Place.
And star of the first one.
Yeah, I didn't see it.
Neither did I.
Anyway,
it's scary.
He is Secretariat, and in this world, Secretariat is a racehorse, but because of the way this world works, he's more like a track runner as opposed to like a racehorse, right? Like it's not a horrible race. Horse racing isn't a horrible thing like it is in real life because they have their own agency to run the race, right?
Yeah.
But they start off talking about some scandal possibly that Secretariat's betting on his own races, and he denies it, and he's very charismatic. And then they read a letter from a young BoJack Horseman. Yeah,
which was the first oof of the episode for me. That I wrote down what he says in it. Oh, I didn't write down all that he says in it, but I wrote down what I think is the important part.
BoJack first he says the whole I think I'm on the right track.
Yeah.
Get it? Because a horse on a track like you. Do you get the joke? We're both horses. Do you get the joke? Which is
funny in a callback, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but callback to BoJack's comedic stylings
at the time.
And then he asks, what should he do when he gets sad? Because he's a good boy, but sometimes he gets sad.
So I wrote down the exact quote because I think this is a really good quote where he says, "I'm a good kid and I like to play and I like to go to school, but sometimes I get sad. What do you do when you get sad? How do you not be sad?" And so this is something that is a little part of the episode, but really struck with me because one of the things that I'm passionate about is a weird way to put it, but passionate about in depictions of depression is that it doesn't come from nowhere, right? I feel like a lot of lesser depictions of depression when they will say, oh, look at how nice their childhood was until they got into whatever and then the depression came, right? And that is maybe not maybe that is the case. Maybe some people, that suffer from depression do have a perfectly normal childhood. But I think for a lot of people, that's not really the case. And even if you can't quantify it at the time, right? Even if you don't know what it is, this idea that you're living a perfectly normal life and just sometimes you're sad, and like it's a chemical imbalance, right? Like,
Right.
Sometimes there's no reason for it, but it just happens. And so that's something that's done very well in my favorite book series, the Stormlight Archive. When it flashes back to the main character's childhood, he talks about how like, yeah, like I should, like everything is good right now, but there's this darkness like on the edge that keeps threatening to seep in, and I don't know why. And so just immediately, young BoJack saying that in his letter is like that's a sign, right? If you know how he's gonna turn out with hindsight or whatever, that's a sign that he's not all right. But it's something that's overlooked.
We don't have the full story of his childhood yet, but we've seen flashbacks where he was not treated very well.
No,
and so you get the idea that that's a huge part of it, right?
Yeah, it's something that could come across as like, just something that kids say, right?
Right.
But in reality, for a lot of people, that is a kind of early childhood sign that something isn't right.
Right. Definitely. I have Secretariat's response here.
Go.
Which I will read.
Yes, please.
BoJack, when I was your age, I got sad. A lot. I didn't come from such a great home, but one day I started running, and that seemed to make sense. So then I just kept running. BoJack, when you get sad, you run straight ahead and you keep running forward, no matter what. There are people in your life who are going to try to hold you back, slow you down, but you don't let them. You don't stop running, and you don't ever look behind you. There's nothing for you behind you. All that exists is what's ahead. And what's interesting about this quote for me and this speech that he gives is it is actually very similar to, I believe it's episode 3, Prickly Muffin. He gives a similar speech, BoJack does, to young Sarah Lynn when they're on the set of Horsing Around.
Interesting. Okay.
And he gives a similar speech about the fans are what's important, and you keep working for them, and they'll support you. And like he gives this, remember his eyes get real crazy, and and she looks terrified. So it to me it kind of echoes that, where BoJack at a young age heard something similar, and so he's passing that on, almost toxically to Sarah Lynn at a young age.
And I think it's also echoed later in this episode by a speech that somebody else gives. But it's just a big theme in this show overall. I think the idea of like, just ignore the sadness and keep moving and keep going, and eventually you'll get away from it, which, as we'll find out with Secretariat in a second, is most commonly not the case.
Yeah, so we cut to Secretariat. He's on a bridge and standing on the edge of it, and we have like a radio show playing in the background, and they talk about how Secretariat got caught cheating. And I think it's just implied he was betting on his own races and things like that, and and then they go, it's the 70s, you can't cheat in sports.
Yeah. There's some good humor underlining what is otherwise an extremely dark scene.
Yeah. And he jumps off the bridge, and then back up on the bridge out of Louisville, some idiot parked their car on the bridge, right? And so that's a pretty striking way to open, because obviously in real life Secretariat didn't commit suicide as a horse, so they're setting up this character that was important to BoJack, kind of an idol for him, and that ended up ending his own life because he didn't want to be known as a cheater, or couldn't live with being known as a cheater.
And I think probably had underlying issues as well. But this was the first time I paused the episode while I was watching last night when I watched it for the first time, and it's just something that when you watch a show that is dealing with this kind of a subject matter, I think one of the things that is not commonly done is they show like the full act. So it always catches me off guard when somebody does. I started watching another show. I started watching Dark, and this isn't a spoiler because it happens in the first like 10 minutes of the show, but somebody hangs themselves. and it doesn't cut away after, you know, they put the noose around their neck. Like you see it, and that, you know, even though this is a fucking horse, a cartoon horse doing it, you know, it's still seeing Secretariat hit the water is like, Jesus. Like it's not something that you're used to. Or at least I'm not used to.
It's definitely, you know, the rest of this episode is a bit of a slowdown from what happened the previous episode, but that it's almost we're still going full tilt here, right?
Yes.
The episode kind of settles after this, but yeah, it's a pretty gnarly thing to start the episode with, is to learn what happened to Secretariat and see him do it. After the intro, we get to the Golden Globes,
which is so funny. This entire sequence, like a great way to take the pressure out or whatever, you know, of how hard that introduction is.
A little before we get into what happens in the scene, a little bit of continuity.
Okay.
If you look closely, while BoJack is accepting his Golden Globe, Beyonce can be seen in the audience wearing a cast. Which she hurt herself in, you know, because of all the single dollars in the our A story is a D story episode.
When he's walking up to the stage, the camera is held on some celebrity that is just eating. Is that I didn't get if that was a joke or a callback or something.
Oh, I didn't see that this time. Hold on,
I'm not
Let me
sure.
pull up the episode. Hold on, this is important. Cameron Crowe is there. Naomi Watts and Wallace Shawn are there. Is that supposed to be Yeah, I see the guy eating. Is that supposed to be David Boreanaz?
Oh, wait, you know what? It might be.
I think it's supposed to be David Boreanaz.
That might be, which is another good callback.
To me, it looks like David Boreanaz, or it could be Val Kilmer. Wasn't there a Val Kilmer joke?
Hang on, I'm looking at that's David Boreanaz, because that's how they drew him in.
Right.
I think that's how they drew him in the other episode.
Leon himself, ladies and gentlemen, David Boreanaz.
Yeah.
His most well-known role, Leon in Kingdom Hearts.
Exactly.
So yeah, BoJack wins the Golden Globe for Best Comedy/Musical for his book, One Trick Pony.
It's so good because they say BoJack Horseman, and I go, he didn't fucking. I'm like, wait, are we skipping ahead to they made a movie about the book? Like, what is happening?
Oh.
And then he goes like, you know, my book, you know, it wasn't really a musical or a comedy, and I'm like, that's what you have a problem with? And he goes, also not a movie.
You guys watch the movies that you nominate?
Which is, you know.
And they later, before I forget, I want to mention this. They later, Todd comes up with a crazy idea, and Mr. Peanut Butter says, that's the kind of idea that wins a Golden Globe.
Yeah.
So they're just shitting all over the Golden Globes. Also, they mentioned that BoJack had previously been banned from the Golden Globes after coming to blows with Sir Paul McCartney, which is pretty funny.
Yeah.
At the end of BoJack's speech, he says, after party at my restaurant, and he instantly regrets that. Todd goes to get him some cotton candy, and Princess Carolyn and everybody's favorite character, Vincent Adultman, show up.
I actually cheered when he walked onto screen.
Dude, he's got cotton candy all over his face.
Look at him. It's in his fucking in his trench coat.
Yeah, my favorite line from this section is she's saying, all you do is talk about work. We need to go on vacation. Can you imagine this body in a swimsuit? And BoJack goes, I literally cannot.
It's so funny.
Just delivered so well by Will Arnett there. I literally cannot.
I also love the friendship between Mr. Peanut Butter and Vincent seems so pure in only the way in only the way that a friendship between a little boy and a dog could.
Yes,
you know,
definitely, definitely. And They leave, and Mr. Peanut Butter's there talking to BoJack, and he starts to. He actually wants to interact with Mr. Peanut Butter because he wants to ask about Diane, and in Mr. Peanut Butter fashion, he gets pulled away by what is the name he always uses?
Angela or somebody?
No, it's
Erica.
Yeah, I close
It's
Erica.
Erica.
That's what it is. Erica, and he's something.
Yeah.
How'd you get out of rehab or some shit? Like that.
He goes, who let you out of the burn ward?
Oh, that's what it is. The burn ward.
Yeah, I really like that. Also, Princess Carolyn has a line earlier where she's like, "If you can't be happy tonight, maybe you'll never be happy again." And I was like, "Oh yeah,
that's
my
right."
God.
And he goes, "Is that supposed to be encouraging?"
Yeah, I was like, "Oh no." So here's my thing, right, with Vincent Adult Man. This is the thing that I really want to see by the end of this show. Okay, and I really don't know if they're gonna give it to me, but I need to know who the other two kids are in that in that trench coat. Like
yeah, I can neither confirm nor deny.
I want the Vincent Adult Man origin story.
Yeah, there's a gritty episode where they show his backstory.
Yeah.
So that I believe we cut next to the supermarket with Diane.
Well, first, this girl comes up to Bojack.
Oh, that's right. Bojack goes and has sex with a girl. And
before that, it's even worse because a girl who's wearing an I'm a Zoe t-shirt comes up to him and is like, "Hey, your book really meant a lot to me. Like, I took a lot out of it." And he goes,
"That's right.
Oh, that's cool." Or because she's like, "It was like you were really naked in it, like putting your real self out there." And he's like, "Want to go back to my house and get even more naked?" And the disappointment in this girl's voice when this person that clearly meant a lot to her in terms of like telling his truth like that, and she saw some of herself in him, is just a fucking asshole that hits on her immediately, is like, it's very well done.
Well, and I'm glad you brought it up, actually, because I forgot about that scene, but that scene's actually pretty important to a scene that happens later in the show, or later in this episode. So there's another girl to his left, and he goes, "What about you?" She goes, "Sure." And they go back and have sex, and his bed falls apart again because he still hasn't fixed his bed. And one of the books that was holding his bed up was Diane's Secretariat book that she wrote, leading him to want to pursue Secretariat. So then we go to the grocery store where the two paparazzi birds are there, and they're like, "Hey, Diane, you and Bojack still friends?" Heckling her in the way bird paparazzi can. "Oh, you looking at some oranges? Huh? You gonna write a book about oranges?"
Yeah.
It's like, what the fuck?
And then it's followed up by what is one of my favorite like cutaways in this entire show so far, where she gets this call by Sebastian St. Clair, and I fucking love Sebastian St. Clair, and I fucking love the soundtrack that's playing in the background while he's talking. It's actually perfect.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's almost like they didn't know what they were going to animate when they had the acting done, but then they just had him doing ridiculous things while he's... did you recognize the voice of Sebastian St. Clair, another celebrity?
It sounded familiar again, but I didn't look it up.
The not as funny half of Key and Peele, Keegan-Michael Key.
Is that really Keegan-Michael Key?
Yes. Actually, I shouldn't say not as funny, but not as successful.
Yeah, definitely not as successful. Sorry.
Jordan Peele's
Keegan.
definitely reinvented himself as this like crazy director, man.
Yeah,
Key's just kind of there,
Yeah.
But he is Sebastian St. Clair.
Yes.
And is your favorite part when he tries to hand the person with nub arms the package and they can't grab it?
And he just drops it on the ground.
Well, and what I like about that is it shows that he's like this guy like doing all these things, but also that he actually doesn't really care about what he's doing.
He's one of those like asshole celebrity, like, I go to the places where people are hurting and I hand out relief, but he doesn't really give a fuck,
No,
like
not at all. Not at all. And he wants Diane to come document what he's doing.
It's a publicity tour, like
exactly. Where she is seeing it as, I could do some good.
Yeah.
She doesn't quite understand that. Sure, but not really.
She can do some good, but also I think this is a flaw in Diane. Diane has romanticized the problems in the world, and in her
Yes.
head and really wants to like, and you see it. The next scene is her talking to Mr. Peanut Butter about how she wants to go on this big, this big thing. And she's like, what if I want to go sleep in caves and
Poop in buckets.
Like, it's like, she's not recognizing that like this is actually really, really fucking messed up shit. She wants to be in it though because she thinks it's like it validates her and makes her a better person, right? Which is I think that a lot of people do with the problems in the world where I think it's really also a bad thing to do is to use other people's suffering to make you feel better about yourself.
Right.
Which is it feels very it's funny because Diane is voiced by Alison Brie, who was on Community, and there's Alison Brie's character on Community isn't like this, but one of the other leads on Community is a lot like that. In the like, there's so many places that have so many terrible things happening, and if I'm loud about it, it makes me feel better about myself,
Right.
Like, so it's just those are the times where I'm like, oh yeah, Alison Brie voices her. Otherwise, I forget.
Yeah. She's really good at disappearing into that
Yeah.
character, honestly.
Yeah.
So Mr. Peanut Butter gives one of these little speeches, monologues.
I've got it written down. It's
Do you want to read it?
Sure. So this is one I think that it calls back or it connects a little bit to what Secretariat is saying at the beginning, where he goes, "You're not going to find what you're looking for in these awful made-up places. The universe is a cruel, uncaring void. The key to being happy isn't to search for meaning. It's to just keep yourself busy with unimportant nonsense, and eventually you'll be dead." Which, isn't exactly what Secretariat was saying in the beginning, but it's the same kind of idea that a lot of people have of like, life doesn't really matter. Just like keep going, keep running, keep moving, and then eventually it'll be over. Like, and it's
just to me, what's so striking about that speech is it's coming from Mr. Peanut Butter.
Yeah, it's crazy
Right.
for him to say that.
Right, but it kind of gives you a little look inside his mind that maybe not everything's so happy-go-lucky all the time, right? Maybe
God, I can't wait for the shoe to drop where Mr. Peanut Butter is just all sorts of fucked up like everybody else on this show.
Everybody is flawed, right?
Yeah,
That's the point.
Yeah.
Is it's like we all have our issues, and Mr. Peanut Butter, although he is an optimist and continues to push forward, he's got some logs in the fire, so to speak. So
yeah. I like that. I've never heard that before, but
Logs
some
in the
logs
fire?
in the fire. Yeah, no, I've never heard
got
that.
some
But
logs in there,
yeah,
They're
you got some
burning up.
logs, dude.
Yeah, I got some logs in the toilet.
Yeah. Oh wait,
then
hang on.
Hold on, wait, what?
Yeah.
So we cut to Princess Carolyn's office where BoJack's there, and she has a couple jobs on to be a villain in a Bond movie. He doesn't like that. A Coen Brothers movie where he's the one horse in a town, and he goes, "No, I want to make Secretariat. It's time."
Well,
And she goes, "You're really old.
yeah.
Why we can't?" And he goes, "This is all I've ever wanted to do, and the time's right." And she says, "Oh, fish, of course. Why would you ever make things easy for me when instead you can make things incredibly difficult? Laura, clear out my schedule. I have to push a boulder up a hill and then have it roll over me time and time again with no regard for my well-being." And he says, "That a girl?" Like that.
Yeah.
Just
The Tale of Sisyphus. It's a Greek myth. Sisyphus
Yes.
is the guy that rolls the
continues to roll the ball up the hill.
yes.
The boulder. Yep.
Also based off Sisyphus, Darth Maul in Star Wars. I don't know if you knew that. He's that's his thing. He keeps getting fucked up, but he keeps getting back up and being like, "I'm gonna do it again," but he knows that he can't do it.
I missed the part where Sisyphus got cut in half and fell down a 1,000-foot shaft.
But then he came back with like a fucking crab legs and
Crab legs.
and and then he got fucked up again by a little girl, and then he got fucked up a third time by the dude that fucked him up the first. It's look.
Yeah, hey.
Darth Maul just keeps catching strays, dude. Like pointed strays. There's
Darth Maul, more like Darth Mauled.
Yeah.
Am I right?
Darth Maul is a great character after you get past episode 1. So the other
Princess
thing about
Carolyn
this,
also mentions Vincent. I forgot to mention
so this is what I wanted to bring up because I just think it's so funny and I don't understand how. Because I'm with BoJack. I'm like, Princess Carolyn, what the fuck are you doing? Come on. But she's like, he's so busy at the business factory, and I'm like, Come on, the business factory? Really?
He works full time at the business factory, Sean.
Really?
What's the problem?
Oh, come on.
He's got to take the guy to the place and do the business.
I love it. It's so good. It's also so infuriating.
Yeah. And then now this episode jumps around a lot because now we're in Mr. Peanut Butter's office in his home with Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter. And he says, "Hey, our bi-monthly curated box of snacks was a big success. But I got in this business to make movies, Todd. Let's talk about making a movie." And Todd goes, "Hey, I have all these scripts right here, but I also have a non-movie related idea."
And Mr. Peanut Butter immediately is like, "Let's hear it." Like,
I don't want to hear about the movie ideas anymore.
Yeah.
And Todd's idea is not for a year-round Halloween store, but a Halloween store specifically in the month of January. And Mr. Peanut Butter is on board for this idea. They are ready for this Halloween store.
When we started this season, this was not the relationship that I was expecting to find one of the most entertaining parts of the show.
Yeah.
But oh my God, every time Todd and Mr. Peanut Butter are on screen together, I'm like, this is cinema. This is perfect. This is
They're
insane.
incredible. We cut to BoJack talking to Lenny Turtletop about Secretariat. And he goes, "I think it's time to play Secretariat, but what, do you want to play his dad or some old witch doctor that puts a curse on him?"
Yeah.
And BoJack says, "Hey, I want to be Secretary. I know I'm a little long in the tooth, but you can't count out an old pro." And he goes, "You can't play the ageism card on me. I have farts that have lasted longer than your career. But let's be real, Secretariat died at 27.
Yeah.
BoJack says, "Hey, man, just get me in a room."
Yeah.
And, he says a bunch of Hollywood shit. You got to go picture. And by that, I mean this. And by that, I mean this. And,
it's funny.
the turtle top bit. And again, we're jumping around a lot, but we're back in BoJack's house where they're presenting the idea of the Halloween store to BoJack.
Some great fucking lines.
This is a great sequence that starts with the has this ever happened to you? And they're just trying to sell the idea of the Halloween store. Did you know January is the month with the most suicides? Yeah, I'm getting close.
They're like, according to facts, there's more suicides in January than in any other month. Yeah, I'm getting pretty close over here. But I also love a truly immersive Halloween experience for the rest of us, which just like triggers me because it's something that like advertisers do a lot where they just throw the word immersive into fucking anything.
It's truly immersive.
Yeah, and you're like, what the fuck does that even mean? I love the thing they're like, have we ever met before?
Yeah,
and
dude, I wrote that down too. Hey, before we start though, have we ever met before? No. And he's just like, Jesus Christ.
And then BoJack says, unbelievable. When your powers combine, you are somehow even more stupid than the sum of your stupids. You stop encouraging him, and you stop encouraging him. The two of you are playing with fire. So my question, Mike, is have you ever been BoJack in this scenario where you've had two friends where you're like, you guys have to stop?
Like in seriousness?
No, maybe not in seriousness, but is there
sometimes
ever, like,
you and Tyler, I feel like I'm
that's
BoJack.
What I was thinking. That's what I was thinking. I was thinking Mike is BoJack and Tyler and I.
Yeah, sometimes I feel like I am BoJack with you and Tyler. I'll agree with that one. It also reminds me of the dynamic. It's a little nicer. Have you ever watched The Flight of the Conchords?
I have not, but I've heard of it.
You should because it's hilarious. But it's Brett and Jermaine, and then their manager Murray, and they have a very similar even though they're all stupid there, but Murray thinks he's smart and thinks they're idiots. So it's watch Flight of the Conchords, everybody. It's a very good show. Anyway,
you brought up The Office earlier. I also think of Michael and Dwight. It's such a good, and I think it's a very relatable thing. I think a lot of people have that. Those two friends that you're like, when you get them together, it's like, oh, good Lord. You guys are bouncing off each other. Stop.
Right. Yeah. Stop being having so much fun together that no one else is having fun with.
Yeah, exactly.
So we cut to a restaurant where Princess Carolyn and Vincent Adultman are on a date, and she is just not happy. And they have, what to me is one of the saddest breakups in media history, where she, she says, what does she say? I can't say it because I keep thinking of the way he says it, because he says monogamy to me.
She says there has to be a difference between monogamy and monotony.
And he goes, "What's monogamy?" Yeah. And she goes, "Wow.
Yeah.
I think we have different ideas of what this is." And she's like, I want to be an adult about this, but I'm hurt. Get out of my life. Go away. And he goes, "Okay. Can I have another soda?" Because he is, again, 3 children stacked on each other in a trench coat. Once again, that is what he is.
It's so good. Can I? Because, you really can't understate how important the beat of silence between her saying that,
yes,
we need to break up is, and him going, "Can I have another soda?"
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
It's really good.
So time is just flying in this episode, because now we have BoJack auditioning for Secretariat, and we meet Kelsey Jennings, the director, and they are just not happy to see BoJack. Lenny mentions, she's just sick of all these auditions. We've seen 30 auditions in. We're so sick of people auditioning, But BoJack...
I've listened to interviews with actors where they've said that shit happens, and it's the most demoralizing thing that could ever happen before an audition.
They just don't want to hear your audition, no matter how good it is.
They're like, "Oh yeah, we've been doing this for hours. We're exhausted," and you're like, "Oh well, fuck me, I guess."
Right. So BoJack actually gives a pretty good audition, and you can see Kelsey kind of light up a bit, and Lenny. But as
he says,
they're about to say,
he says, "They see a greatness in me and they mistake it for goodness, but I know there's nothing there. And as fast as I run, I can't get away from that." Which, building up further with the story from Secretariat.
The script, right? But it's also something that you definitely... BoJack's not really acting.
No, that's him.
Right? That's him. And that's why it's so effective. Because I don't know if they really have implied that BoJack's a great actor.
No.
He's vaguely modeled after Bob Saget, who not known as for his acting prowess, right?
Yeah.
But here he kills it because it's just too realistic for him, and they're about to say something nice, and the assistant with him says, "Andrew Garfield said yes," and they start celebrating because Andrew Garfield is going to play Secretariat, and Lenny Turtletop says, "You don't say no to Spider-Man."
Fucking true, though. They're right, though. They're right.
It's just funny hearing J. Jonah Jameson say that.
That's true.
And then we're back to the Garfield jokes where BoJack yells, "Garfield!" like John Arbuckle would in the Garfield cartoon. So I enjoy that. We have another Sebastian St. Clair appearance where he's on the phone with Diane and he's giving her directions for when she goes there, because seems like she's made up her mind at this point. And he goes, "Hold on, there's a mosquito in my tent," and he goes, "What do you want?" And it's just a giant mosquito person.
It's so good. It's so good.
But she gets another call from Princess Carolyn, who pretends she doesn't know her. "Hey, you remember I'm the pink cat? I used to date BoJack." She goes, "Yeah, you went to my wedding." And she's offering her to be the character consultant on Secretariat the movie because she wrote the book. And she says the line, which is repeated again later, "There's always later to help these kids. There's always later. You have some money in your pocket, you can help them more. There's always later." Right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's something that BoJack echoes to her later on, not knowing that Princess Carolyn said that, but I just thought it was pretty interesting.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're back with PB Livin at the diner. And something I didn't mention earlier, but Bojack in most scenes of this episode is holding his Golden Globe.
Yeah.
Because it's very important to him.
Yeah.
But in the diner, he's holding his Golden Globe. And they, again, have another idea. PB Living. And this is maybe my favorite, because they do this more throughout the show where they have, like, crazy ideas.
Uh-huh.
And smoothies might be my favorite.
Well,
it's a mood that you drink.
And Bojack rightfully is like, what the fuck does that even mean? And they're like...
I love Bojack's animation here.
Yeah.
Because they keep cutting back and forth between the two sides of the booth. And just him holding the Golden Globe.
He's
but
so
just
tired.
Like, he's so tired of them. And he's so angry. But he wants to know. He goes, what are the physical attributes? Like, he can't. And they're just like, it's a mood that you drink. And then just the cherry on top. I mean, they talk about the Halloween thing, which we'll get to in a second. But the cherry on top is Mr. Peanut Butter going, wait, did you say smoothie or smoothie? Because wait, which one do we sell? Like, he just has no idea what is happening. He's just Todd's saying stuff that sounds smart to him, and that's good enough for him. Yeah.
And also they get the thing about, they set up what will be important later on, where Bojack's like, what about the Halloween store? And they're like, we had to rip up the floor because, first of all, there's a lot to unpack here. They say they had to rip up the floor because Mr. Peanut Butter was scratching up the hardwood floors. So, like, you would think,
as a dog does.
Yeah, you're gonna pick, like, you're taking out the floorboards, right, Mike? Right? Like you're taking the actual. But no, as we cut away to somebody that tries to enter the shop, we find out they dug like a pit.
Yeah, they removed the floors completely.
They didn't just remove the floor; they must have also dug a pit. Like there's
a basement.
They fall for a long time for there to be a basement, Mike.
That's true. That's true. And they're like, did we ever put the floor back in? And we cut to the guy who goes, oh, a Halloween store in January. This is exactly what I know. And he falls.
And we cut away. Yeah.
They cut away again, and a woman falls. And then you hear the guy go, hello. Who's laying at the bottom of it. And then Bojack says, which I think is the whole point of this bit, is he goes, that's the problem with all your ideas. There are no ground floors. And that's when it cuts away to the woman falling.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's just such a funny bit. But they're having a smoothie party that night for the launch at Mr. Peanut Butter's house. And so we cut to the smoothie party, and Mr. Peanut Butter says to Todd, it's all happening. And Todd goes, hooray! And I don't throw that word around lightly, which he says hooray constantly.
Yeah.
And Mr. Peanut Butter says the word awful. I don't remember what they're saying.
Well, he says he says feel awful.
Yes, feel awful. And Todd goes, did you say awful or falafel? And he goes, no, I said feel awful, but tell me more about this falafel idea. He goes, falafel or falafel? Because Todd just can't stop. He's out of control. Someone needs to stop Todd. He's a maniac. And we get Bojack sitting on the couch, and he notices Diane from far away. And as we heard earlier, he hasn't talked to her since the Ghost Rider con. But Miss Princess Carolyn shows up, and she's like, I'm trying new things, Bojack smoothies. I think it's some kind of adult onesie. And then in comes Vincent Adultman.
The greatest third act romantic turnaround of all time.
Yes. Princess Carolyn, I had an attitude problem, but I took a time out.
And I thought about what I did.
And the truth, I gotta tell you the truth about me, and the truth is, Bojack's like, yes, he's gonna say it. He goes, I love you. And he's like, what? And then there's like people around going, wow, I wish I was half the man you were. And I wish my boyfriend would do that. And they walk out, and Bojack's like, are you serious? But after that happens, he gets a call from Kelsey Jennings, who says, Andrew Garfield's out. He hurt himself. And sure enough, We cut to the January Halloween store. Oh, Halloween in January. How droll.
Well,
and then he
it's even better. He says, an All Hallows Eve store in
All
January.
Hallows Eve.
How fiendishly droll.
For some reason, and I don't even think of Andrew Garfield as British because I know him as like Spider-Man and like the guy in Social Network. But he is to them the most British person that's ever been British. I don't get it. I don't know why.
Fiendishly droll.
So he falls and breaks every bone in his body, and so he can't be Secretariat. So Kelsey Jennings offers BoJack the role and says she doesn't want any prima donna bullshit. Don't call this number. I'll call you if you need to call. You need to lose 50 pounds and gain 20 back. So BoJack's like, holy shit, this is what I've always wanted. And he goes up on the roof where Diane is, and they have a conversation about it, and he's like, yeah, I think I'm going to be Secretariat. And she goes, wow, you seem thrilled. And he says, what do I do now? And she says, well, that's the problem with life, right? Either you know what you want, and then you don't get what you want, or you get what you want, and then you don't know what you want. He says, well, that's stupid. Because it is.
Yes.
And then she mentions that she actually took the job to work on Secretariat instead of being going with Sebastian St. Clair. And then I have the whole rest of their conversation here, which I'm going to
go for
you. Diane starts, when I first moved to LA, I thought I was going to really do important work, just writing stuff that makes a difference. And then you got to fall into one thing and then another. And BoJack says, well, you got time. There's always later, right? Yeah, I guess there's always later. Do you remember the last time I saw you and you asked if I thought you were a good person deep down? Do I remember that? Yeah, vaguely. You really caught me off guard. I didn't know what to say. Well, do you think I'm a good person deep down? That's the thing. I don't think I believe in deep down. I kind of think all you are is just the things that you do. Well, that's depressing. For what it's worth, I think your writing does make a difference. Thanks. I really wanted you to like me, Diane.
Oh.
I know.
That I know is the most painful part. Cause anybody that's been in the position of like the unrequited feelings or whatever, they want you want to believe that like the other person doesn't really get it, right?
Right.
Like maybe you've managed to play it off in a way where they don't really understand and like everything can be chill, but like the I know is like, God, that is the worst part.
When you're in that kind of situation, which I think everybody has been in, whether they were young, old, whatever it is, you go, well, the only reason we're not together is because they don't know how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, most of the time they probably know how you feel.
Yeah.
And they're just not, it's too awkward. They don't want to address it. They don't, but they don't want to hurt your feelings. So they don't. Anyway, the camera pans up and Wild Horses by the Rolling Stones starts playing, which is a very good track for this situation. Yes. I'm not really a Stones fan, but it's a good song. So we get like a montage of different, almost like this is what this character's up to kind of thing,
Well, it's
right?
a very classic season finale montage in my opinion, which a lot of shows do this. And honestly, I think this is one of the best that I've seen. The two best that I always the best that I always think about is there's one season of Community that does like this kind of season finale montage where like it jumps between all the characters. And now this joins it as being like my second favorite example of this trope. But what I think makes both these work so well for me is they're both kind of making fun of the cliche. They don't take it too seriously while also making it, it's both satisfying, but also taking the piss out of it, in a way that is like, you're making a joke, but you're also just making good television. So like, good job.
Right.
So yeah, I really enjoy it.
I'm gonna try to run through the different ones we get from memory.
And I've got them written down if you missed one.
Okay, cool. We have Princess Carolyn and Vincent Adultman. They're gonna take a vacation, and he has a trench coat that's like Hawaiian style. which is super funny. I don't know how that kid got his hands on that, but he's a fucking genius.
Somebody's got to be bankrolling. Somebody's got to be bankrolling their operation, right?
It might be a PB Living operation, to be honest. Speaking of those guys, we find the falafel.
Yes.
The design for the falafel, and they're excited about that. Is Pinky next?
No, next is Sarah Lynn.
That's right. Sarah Lynn brings Andrew Garfield the pan of lasagna, because we're still on the Garfield bit, and he's just covered in cast and in a hospital bed, and she gives him a nice little hug.
And the next one is we cut to character actress Margot Martindale in prison
with the cast of Orange Is the New Black, which at this time was like the hottest fucking show on Netflix.
Yeah,
when it was like, what, Orange Is the New Black? You know, like people were fucking loved that show in 2014. And, you know, it's got the main characters. It's got Crazy Eyes and, you know, all those gals with Margot Martindale. Then we have Pinky, right?
Yes, yeah.
Who his kids come and hug him, which is nice and heartwarming. And he holds up a piece of paper, like a print media, still a thing.
Yeah.
And so he's excited.
And that's what I mean when I say, like, this is taking, you know, it's making fun of this trope, but at the same time, seeing Pinky Penguin reunite with his family is like something that we've been waiting for since episode 1, you know? Like it genuinely feels like payoff to the story.
Which is insane, because it's like
a stupid idea, but it's
and then we have
Herb Kazaz.
Herb and his bear nurse, and he's telling her jokes and she's laughing.
Very heartwarming.
Yes, very very heartwarming. What's the last one?
And then we see Bojack sitting alone watching.
Oh, I thought there was one more, but you're right. It just goes to Bojack, doesn't it?
Yep. He's watching horsing around.
Bojack's in there watching horsing around, and it's an episode where, you know, everybody learned their lesson, and ha 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 ha, and they hug at the end, and
and I think, I think if the episode ended here, it would be on a very like definitively downer note. Where
because he's by himself, and you can see the sun rising in the background, like he's been just sitting there watching horsing around all night.
And like
holding his Golden Globe.
Like you were saying, the idea is like in this TV show, everything ended, everybody learned their lesson, and we got a happy ending. But in reality, Bojack sits alone, holding his award that means nothing, as the sun rises on his dirty house. You know, like, which is a downer ending.
Yeah, a bit,
and the last thing he sees on the show, and I think this is also intentional, created by Herb Kazaz.
Yeah.
And then it cuts to him sitting alone in his messed up house. And so if the episode ended here, I think definitively this is a sad ending for Bojack. Yeah. But I think this next scene...
But they give us a little optimism in this last scene where he's back at the planetarium, where him and Herb originally made their promise to run Hollywood, and a young horse named Blake is having him sign his book. And Blake says, "You're like my idol." Bojack goes, "Oh, really?" And then he kind of stares off over Hollywood. As Hollywood. I'm sorry. I can't believe I just did that.
I know.
That's insane.
That's embarrassing, isn't it?
It's a bit embarrassing. Hollywood as Closer by Tegan and Sarah plays, which is a bop.
Yeah.
And then it cuts the credits, and no back in the 90s, just this song playing over the credits to end season 1.
And very importantly, which I think is another thing that gives us like a bit of an optimistic ending, is the lyric that it cuts to credits on is "the night sky is changing overhead," and then boom, you know, special guest stars, whatever. So I think that's it's really good. And I've been listening to that song on repeat since I watched this episode last night. It's just, man, like we've talked how I need a little bit of a break to do some other stuff before we jump into season 2. but this ending really makes me want to just hit the next episode and keep going. You know?
Well, the thing is about that. The next episode's a Christmas episode, which has nothing to do with anything.
Yes.
So the next episode we are going to do is BoJack Horseman Christmas Special, Sabrina's Christmas Wish.
Mm-hmm.
BoJack and Todd watch a very special Christmas episode of Horsing Around to celebrate the holidays. Which is kind of an inconsequential episode before we get to season 2.
But I'm really excited because like the Christmas special, or Horsing Around is like it's taking the it's making fun of the shows like, you know, Full House, which Full House is one of my favorite shows of all time. In a way. I really love Full House. I grew up on it. So anything that kind of is like parodying that kind of entertainment, I enjoy. You know?
You'll like this. It just doesn't move the story along because it's literally an episode of Horsing Around.
Mm-hmm.
You know? But anyway, we didn't do the categories. I got ahead of myself here. I got ahead of myself here.
Let's start with what's your favorite animal-based joke, Mike? I can tell you mine if that helps.
Yeah, go ahead.
Mine was absolutely the mosquito.
Yeah, that's what it was. The mosquito. Hold on, there's a mosquito in my tent. And then it pans over and it's just what do you want?
Yeah.
And he's just standing there.
Do you have a favorite bit overall from the episode?
It's tough to beat Vincent Adultman in general.
It really is.
It's like the bit of the show, not just this episode. This is an episode full of a lot of bits from has this ever happened to you?
Yeah.
To Smoothies, to Vincent Adultman, and then I have a soft spot for the Garfield bit.
Yeah.
Whenever they reference Andrew Garfield and Garfield the cat.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go with Garfield.
I'm gonna go with the floor being gone from the Halloween store.
Yep. That's a classic one as well, yeah.
And do you have a favorite quote from the episode?
It's probably the Secretariat speech.
Yeah.
Or one of the 3 big, like, whether it's the Mr. Peanut Butter, the Secretariat speech, or like the ending, the conversation between BoJack and Diane. All 3 of those are very, very effective.
Yeah.
Like gut punches without it being overly sad, you know?
I think the one that hit hardest for me was the Mr. Peanut Butter one. That would be my favorite. Just the idea of keep yourself busy with unimportant nonsense. Eventually you'll be dead. I think about that a lot whenever I'm like, man, and then this book is going to come out, and then this video game's going to come out, and this movie's going to come out, and this TV show, and I'm just going to keep consuming all this content, and I'm just going to, I'm going to love all this entertainment media. And sometimes I do stop and I think like, am I just keeping myself busy with this shit? Like, so I think that's
someone right
that
now
really
is like waiting for this episode to come out, and they're like, oh, the new what is this, a crossover episode is coming out.
I don't think anybody is.
No, there's at least one person.
Yeah, maybe one person. If you are that person, tell us.
Shout out to you, one person.
If you're that person that the sadness in your life can only be filled by a new episode of What Is This, a Crossover Episode, please tell us.
Yes, please let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's the episode.
Man.
Yeah.
We'll be back with the Christmas special.
And then following that, we'll be back with season 2, episode 1, Brand's New Couch.
Ooh.
Picking up where he left off, BoJack Horseman is now set to start filming his dream movie, Secretariat.
Exciting.
And this episode introduces quite a few new characters, and it really moves forward. Because this was the first season, they clearly had a vision for the first season.
Yeah.
But this was like in this weird era where Netflix was like, they were putting money behind stuff, but not until like it became like a success.
Yeah.
And really all they had at this point was like Orange is the New Black, right? But there's going to be some more budget put into BoJack Horseman here.
Yeah, I'm also excited to see, like, you see this a lot with shows like this, where it's like, all right, we made the first season. It was like a contained thing. And now that we've been given some road ahead of us to keep going, we're going to start to build maybe longer lasting plot lines. And, you know, we're going to give ourselves a little more room to do stuff. Now that we think we're going to be around for a little bit.
Definitely. All right, Sean. Well, thank you for
we did it.
Hanging out with me on season 1, man. That is exciting. You know, even if there isn't a season 2 of this podcast, I think we ended on a good note. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Just like season 1 of BoJack Horseman. Yeah.
But there will be a season 2 of this podcast.
Never say never, Sean.
Don't say that. Don't say that. Also, we have to announce Mike's new podcast, Bojacking Around, with Jason, where they watch season 2 of BoJack Horseman and talk about it.
My new show, Bojacking Off with SpikeGhetti.
The third. What's happening? I can't. There's a red dot on me. What?
I'm sorry, Sean. Sean, why don't you, before the red dot takes you out, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you?
You guys can follow me on Twitter at Sean_AFK. Everything that I do is on there.
You can find me on Twitter at SpikeGhetti Bros. And you can find me and my brother Jason on twitch.tv/SuperSpikeGhetti Bros. Also, the Discord is linked in the description if you want to come talk about BoJack or anything in our Discord.
Yeah. We talk about a lot of stuff. Free. So, you know.
Don't go into the Marvel Snap area, though. Dangerous.
It's pretty toxic in there.
It's pretty toxic. It's just Tyler's, like, room.
Yeah, Tyler just posts all of his victories or losses.
Nope. Don't go in Tyler's room. It's dirty.
Yeah, he's, oh, man.
Anyway, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. We'll see you next season. Sean, hit him with it. Oh, I said it. Fuck. Sean, do the thing. What do we say? I need a thing to say. Sean, Ebola, second death in Nigeria.
Mike, suck a dick, you dumb shit.